Hi everyone, today we're going to be showing you how to achieve a nice sharp point at the center of your Sahaara bra. Here are two ways to attach the cups to the front frame. The first method is recommended if you're just starting out, and it's fairly straightforward, however it does leave the raw edges showing. If you're looking for more of a challenge and want to enclose those raw edges, we will explain in detail how this is accomplished in this video. Here's a method we use at Rubies bras. And the reason we started using this is because we wanted to avoid showing as many raw edges as possible, and we like having a clean finish when we can. This method is a little bit more time consuming and a little bit more of a challenge, but if you're interested, then keep watching. For this, you'll need your two finished Sahaara Bra cups. In this tutorial, I've sewn view A, which is made of bra tulle. You're also going to need pins. I also have my front frame lining piece, which is cut in tulle, and for this I've cut along the waistband hemline option. Below that, I have my front frame main fabric piece, which is cut in duplex. Our first step is pinning the first cup to the frame. Double check that you're pinning the neckline edge towards the center, and make sure that you leave a 1/4 inch gap between the cup and the edge of the point because you need that space for the second cup. I'm also pinning the lining attached so that the cup is in between the two front frame pieces. Once I have that first pin in the center front point pinned, I'm going to move right to the underarm area and pin all 3 layers together. This way, I can ease the rest of the cup along the frame's wire line. So this is what it looks like all pinned up. As you can see, the cup is pinned in between the lining and the duplex frame, and there's a 1/4 inch gap at the center front point. So I'm sewing at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, making sure to backstitch and take my pins out. Also make sure that all the layers remain flat and that nothing is folded over. When you get to the neckline edge, double check that the 1/4 inch gap is still there. I also like to backstitch a couple of passes back and forth in this area, and the reason for this is because this area tends to hold a lot of tension, and because it's sandwiched, it can be time consuming later on to go and fix any ripping that could happen over time. It's just better to secure the area from the get-go. So that's what it's gonna look like. Here's that gap that we left, and if I flip it out, it's going to be nice and pointy. Now we're going to move on to the second cup. So here we are with the first cup sewn to the frame. As you can see, there's a 1/4 inch gap between the neckline of the cup and the wireline edge of the frame. And now we'll be attaching the second cup to the frame. First off, you'll need to move the lining out of the way. So that's step 1. Step 2 is flipping that first cup over so that the right side of the frame and that the right side of the cup are facing each other. And what I personally like to do at this point is fold and pin that first cup so that it's out of the way and not at risk of being caught under the needle when we sew. Do your best to make sure that the neckline is meeting at the same level. So what you don't want it to do is have the second cup pinned right at the edge, but you also don't want it to be so far down along the wire line that it ends up being more of a curve in shape rather than a point. You also want to make sure that you're not pinning too close to the center front because this area here has a lot of bulk. You've got your first layer fold over, second layer fold over, your lining, your front frame, and now you're going to add another layer fold over. So it's best to avoid pinning that area and adding more bulk than necessary. I'm now just adding another pin about an inch from the first, and the goal here is just to stitch down that area only. This is done so that the point is sharp when the rest of the cup is sewn. If we didn't do this step, we'd have to pin all the way across the wire line, including the bulk, somehow not get the first cup caught in the stitching, and then it would be a miracle if the point actually turned out pointy. Now I'm taking my cup to the sewing machine and just sewing up to the second pin. Take your time to make sure that the two cups meet at a point, and you may have to sew this part a couple of times until you get the desired look. So if it's not flush at the top after your first pass of sewing, take it back to the machine and sew it again. So this is what it's going to look like. As you can see, I've gone over a couple of times just because I really want to perfect that point, and you can see that when I flip it over, the frame has a nice sharp point. And now we're going to pin the rest of the cups and go back to the sewing machine. Okay, so now we have our second cup partially sewn to this point, and now we are going to be pinning the rest of the cup and the lining together. First, we're going to flip everything over again, and I'm going to pin that first cup out of the way like we did earlier. And just like we did for that first cup, I'm going to pin the frame and the cup together at the underarm side and slowly ease the rest of the cup in, moving backwards from the underarm. As you start getting to the front, you're going to notice that the bulk from the point is causing the tool to stretch a bit. That's normal, and we'll be sewing it at a 1/4 inch seam allowance anyway. Now I'll be sewing the rest of the cup, and I'm making sure to backstitch and remove my pins as I sew. I'm clipping the remaining threads, and now I'm done. So now we are going to flip over the lining in the frame so that the cups are on the outside, and I'm just going to move the bulk around a bit so it lays flatter and pull the frame pieces over each other. From here, we need to top stitch at 1/4 inch from the edge along the wire line. We're taking our bra straight to the machine without pinning. I found it looks much neater when stitched without pins, and it's much less time consuming. Go slow when you get closer to the center front. For this part, I tend to use a hand crank so that the pivot point is as centered as possible. Here's what the finished product looks like. And this is what it looks like from the inside. So all of the seam allowance is tucked in, that point is hidden, and what's nice about it is that you get to keep that center front point nice and pointy. I hope this helped, and thanks for watching.